Are you a fan of locking down enemies on the battlefield? How about unconventional RPG builds? Say, for example, a kind of cryomancer frost mage type, but who didn't actually cast any spells. If so, you're gonna love this one. Winter is upon us, my friends, and today I'd like to celebrate by building a character who embraces the cold in order to freeze their enemies solid, while simultaneously supporting their friends with light and warmth and good health. Welcome to D4. Hey everybody. So here at D4, every week I take a deep dive into character builds for my favorite role-playing games. I like to crunch numbers about them. I like to theory craft about them, not so that I can tell you the right way or like the best way to play a character, but to explore one potential way to build something in the hopes of creating a character that is both fun but also powerful to play. So if you also enjoy creating characters for your favorite role-playing games, or if you're just into theory crafting, or if you're looking for tips or ideas on how to build something that you're thinking about playing, then welcome home. This is where you belong, and I'm super glad you're here. So thanks for watching. My name's Colby. Okay, so it's been a couple of months now since the new Heroes of Faerun book came out. There's a link down there that you can buy it from if you want to, and then I make like 3 pennies. Anyways, there was a lot that I really liked from that book. The new Blade Singer, of course, that I did a build for as soon as possible, and the Genie Paladin also, I loved, and those would be kind of the things at the top of the list of like things that I liked from the book, right? I'm sure I'll do a build for each of those new and or updated subclasses eventually. Yeah, even the Winter Walker Ranger and probably the Purple Dragon Knight one day, or at least include them in a build, right? But today I wanted to actually build around something else from that book. Not a subclass, but something smaller. There were 34 new feats introduced in the Faerun book. 34. That's a lot. But if I'm being honest, most of them felt a little underwhelming to me, purely speaking from like a mechanics perspective here. Flavor-wise, they were great. That said, there were definitely a few standouts, but I think the one that was most interesting and arguably powerful, Coldcaster. First of all, because I love me a build focused on a particular damage type, right? Nothing like a good Frost Mage, like that one up there. I better stop pointing or I'm going to run out of cards in the first 2 minutes of the video. Or sure, the Pyromancer or Master of the Storm, right? But also because, yeah, the mechanics here with this feat were super interesting and potentially very potent. Let's actually take a look at the feat really quick. It raises a mental ability score of our choice, that's nice, and then teaches us the Ray of Frost cantrip or any other wizard cantrip if we already know that one, that's pretty great. But then here's the best part. Once per turn, note not on our turn necessarily, when you hit a creature with an attack roll and deal cold damage, you can temporarily negate the creature's defenses. The creature subtracts 1d4 from the next saving throw it makes before the end of your next turn. There are a few things in this game that reduce enemy saving throws, but not a ton. Probably because that's a pretty potent thing to do, right? Since some of, maybe most of, the nastiest things that we can do to bad guys in this game are based on saving throws. But of all the ones I can think of that lower enemy saves, this new feat might be the best. Interestingly, we actually got another feat in this book, Fairy Trickster, right, that also affects saving throws, but it gives disadvantage, which is generally superior mathematically to a -1d4, right? But I like Coldcaster more. Not that we couldn't combine them, potentially. But why do I prefer Coldcaster? First of all, the debuff just automatically happens when you land an attack. The enemy doesn't get to save against it to avoid having their future saving throws reduced, as is usually the case with this mechanic, and as is the case with the Fairy Trickster feat, which requires us to land an attack first, and then they get to save against potentially having their saves with disadvantage, right? And generally speaking, landing an attack is more reliable than hoping an enemy fails their saving throw. You can get advantage on attacks. There are lots of ways to add multiple attacks every round. But the second reason is this. Unlike Fairy Trickster, the Coldcaster debuff is unlimited in how often you can use it. Just every single turn. As long as you hit and deal cold damage, you reduce the save. all day long, once per turn. And yeah, even though it's limited to cold damage, it most definitely does not say that the cold damage has to come from a spell. Now, does it? And I can think of a couple of kind of awesome subclasses who aren't spellcasters that could make pretty great use of it. But the question is, which class or subclass can both reliably put out cold damage and has something really nasty that they like to hit their enemy with, but could use a little help making the enemy fail their saving throw? Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Of course you are, because you already saw the thumbnail and or read the title, but I'm going to pretend that this is all going to be a big surprise and just say I proudly present D&D build number 241, Mr. Freeze, Flurry of Snows, Fist of Flurries, Princess Frostbite, A Fistful of Icicles, Smack Frost. Do you want to build a snow monk? Sleet Fighter, Cold Hands, Warm Heart. That might be the most on point, actually. Thanks as always to the Discord users for all of their fantastic suggestions. I think this week I'm going to go with the one from Zilkern, The Frozen Fist. Aptly descriptive, short to the point, punchy, sounds cool. I like it. No sponsor for the video this week. They kind of dry up around the holidays, and that's fine. But so I thought maybe I'd take just a quick second and show you guys. I just got this candle in the mail from Fantasy Sense. It is the one that I've partnered with them on to help create, and I freaking love it. It's called, I think appropriately, Welcome Home. Check it out. They've got my logo there. That was actually created by Crown Studios that do my t-shirts. So it's like the D4, but it's like a cozy little home with a little chimney and a roof. Yeah, they kind of sent me some stuff. I smelled a bunch of stuff. I told them what I liked, what I didn't like. They put this together and I was like, yeah, that's perfect. Perfect companion for story nights and long campaigns. Top notes of bergamot, clove, ozone. Mid notes of leather, labdanum, sandalwood, a little patchouli, though it's not super strong. Some people don't like patchouli. I do like it, but it's faint. And then base notes of amber, dark musk, and powder. Kind of smells like a library or a study a little bit, which is what I was going for. So anyways, if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, check it out. I've got links down in the video description for the page to get there. I've also partnered with them to make a soap that has a set of dice embedded in it. And it's a different color dice set every time. Though the soap is the same, it smells kind of like a pine forest. It's sort of rangery themed. And yeah, you know, as you use the soap, pretty soon you'll start exfoliating really well. And then eventually you'll get a new free dice set. So yeah, if either of those things sound cool, or if you're interested in checking out the other merch that I have, check the video description. I've got links there. All right, jumping into the build at level 1 for our starting class. I actually think I want to start off the build today as a cleric. Yes, we are going to go monk for the core, base of the build, at least early on, but we get some nice things from cleric that will really help out that core, that we'll build on later, and I kind of like the story of this character when we start cleric. So yeah, when we first meet our champion, they are a worshiper of a god or goddess of winter, I think, or of the mountains, or maybe the sea or the storm. I think I'd probably kind of want to lean into the nature-y aspect of the build a little bit. I might be a cleric in name right now, but I might not necessarily be a cloistered priestly type. Maybe more of a nomadic wanderer cleric. Maybe someone who feels closest to the sublime when they're in the extremes of what they can endure in the mountains, traversing glaciers or immersed in the northern seas. Anyways, for our species, I'm gonna say let's go Goliath, as I so often do. And yeah, of course, Frost Giant Ancestry works great here for some extra cold and slowing damage, proficiency bonus times per day, and, thematically, of course, but I think I actually prefer a Hill Giant Ancestry, mechanically at least, for the ability to knock an enemy prone when you hit them with an attack, if they're large or smaller. No save on that, by the way, which is great. But again, that is just proficiency bonus times per day. It's really strong. It could potentially get us advantage on subsequent attacks, as long as we were within 5 feet of them, right? And yeah, hitting our enemies at least once on our turn will be super important for the build. But going Goliath is by no means necessary, so feel free to go a different route if you want. Pick your favorite. As for our background, I'm going to say, as always, take an old one and customize it, or do a custom background if you can, but if not, Guide or Wayfarer should work fine for us, depending on what we want for our origin feat. I think my first choice would probably be Magic Initiate Druid here to get a first level Druid spell and a couple of cantrips, but this is really just kind of a nice to have thing. I'd honestly probably take Cure Wounds for the spell just so I could have a free casting of it once per day. I'm building this character today as a support character first, primarily through debuffing and control, but I'd like to have them have like solid healing potential too. And at these early levels, especially when spell slots are a scarce commodity, I like the idea of having a little more healing power. That said, taking Entangle instead for a little more control might be a better choice. Clerics get Cure Wounds, right? They don't get a free casting of it once per day, but they still get it. I also wouldn't mind having Shillelagh, so I could grab a quarterstaff or a club and use my wisdom to attack, since that's what our DC will be based off of, right? But the bonus action to activate Shillelagh is a bit of a bummer, and eventually at least we're going to want to be making unarmed strikes above all. So this would be kind of just to help us get through the first few levels. So all of that said, and especially if you're planning on playing this character past level 4, I'd probably want to go lucky, as I so often do. I just love on-demand advantage so much, and it will really help us with our kind of resource management, as we'll get into in a minute. That said, in the name of being a good support character, the musician or healer feats would also be great to either give our allies heroic inspiration after a rest, always useful, or to improve our healing a bit and give us a non-spell heal option too. Lots of good choices here. For our starting ability scores, I assume we're going the point buy method as always and say let's take a 15 wisdom and a +2 there, and then a 15 dexterity and a +1, and then a 14 constitution. As for our equipment, let's grab some scale mail, armor, a shield, and just like a club or something for now, but we will be ditching all of that soon, so don't get too attached to any of it. As a Cleric 1, we get the Divine Order feature. This lets us choose between being a Protector or a Thaumaturge. We're going to want the Thaumaturge one since we're not going to need the martial weapon and heavy armor proficiencies that the Protector option gives. Thaumaturge is nice in that it lets us learn one more Cleric cantrip. Be a nice cantrip list if we took Magic Initiate Druid especially. And lets us add our Wisdom modifier to our Arcana or Religion checks, which is some appreciated utility. For our Cleric spells that we get here, we'd want the usuals, of course. Guidance for the extra d4 to ability checks. Toll the Dead is a solid ranged option for cantrip damage. Command is some nice control. You'd want Cure Wounds if you didn't grab it, right? And Healing Word both, I think, for healing options. But then, rather than concentrating on Bless, which I usually recommend when we can get it, I think for this build, I'd instead want to focus on its evil cousin, Bane. Bane is fantastic. It's an action to cast, works on 3 enemies within 30 feet, requires concentration, and then says that if the enemies fail their charisma saving throw against it, one of, if not the best saving throw for us to be targeting, right? Then they have to subtract a d4 from all of their attacks and, yes, saving throws for 1 minute. This will be the first arrow in our I'm going to ruin your saving throws quiver that we're building around today. And it's a spell that will do great things for your team, both offensively, helping their stuff stick to monsters more effectively, right? And defensively, making the monsters hit less often. It's fabulous. And honestly, like, just as good as Bless, depending on the situation, my opinion. You know who's even better than Bless? Because they bless my life so much? My channel members and patrons. Quick shout out, you guys, thank you so much for your support. Truly, it means the world to me. If you are not a member or a patron, I'd love it if you'd consider becoming one. There's a button down there that says join. Just click on it or check the Patreon link in the video description. It'll tell you about all the perks that you can get by being a member, and I give all of my perks to all of my members or patrons, regardless of the level that they support me at, so long as it's just like the silver level or higher. It's like a couple bucks a month. I would just ask that you pay what you think you can afford and what you feel it's worth. The perks include access to the library of write-ups that I do for all of my builds to help you recreate them more easily yourself, access to the community Discord server, and access to the live monthly Q&A hangout sessions that we do. If you are not interested or don't feel like you can afford, supporting the channel like this, that's okay. Being here, watching, liking, subscribing, all of those things are also super helpful, and so thanks for doing any and or all of those. All right, at level 2, this armor is starting to chafe, isn't it? The god of winter or mountains or the sea or the storm has called us to leave behind any protection of humanity and put our faith in the deity. to protect us. Maybe we were an acolyte in a temple, studying behind closed doors, but now it's time to doff any man-made protections, including shelter, and begin a more nomadic, wandering life. Whatever your reasons, yes, we are going to start taking monk levels now, and as such, at Monk 1, we get martial arts, which says that so long as we are unarmored, unshielded, and wielding monk weapons, or just our fists, we can make an unarmed strike as a bonus action every turn. Use our dexterity for the plus to hit and damage of those strikes if we want, and we do, and use our martial arts die for the damage as well, a d6 for now, but it scales with monk level. We can also use dexterity for the DC of our grapple when we decide to grapple with an unarmed strike if we do. I'm not building around that tactic today, but know that it's a solid choice to make for decent control. And I'd say if you want to have one more way to control an enemy or two, you should definitely consider it. We also get unarmored defense here, which says that, again, if we're unarmored and unshielded, our AC equals 10 plus our dexterity plus our wisdom modifiers. Not as good as armor, at least not until we get our ability scores way up, but if we have to be unarmored to use martial arts, it helps. Level 3, we would be a monk 2, and that means we get monk's focus. We get 2 focus points per monk level. They reset on a short rest and can be used for one of 3 things right now. Flurry of Blows lets us spend a focus point to make 2 unarmed strikes instead of 1 as a bonus action, right? Step of the Wind says that we can dash as a bonus action, or if we spend a focus point, dash and disengage. And Patient Defense says we can disengage as a bonus action, disengage and dodge if we spend a focus point. Great versatility there. We also get Uncanny Metabolism, which just says that once per day when we roll initiative, we can just recover all of our spent focus points and heal ourselves for our monk level plus 2 times a roll of our martial arts die in hit points. That's an amazing level 2 feature that makes me infinitely happy. Finally, we get unarmored movement here, which says that if we are unarmored and unshielded, we get an extra 10 feet of speed, meaning that as a Goliath, we'd be at 45 feet of speed right now, which is speedy. At level 4, we would be a monk 3, and that means first up we get deflect attacks, which lets us use our reaction when we're hit by any attack that does bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage to reduce that damage by a d10 plus our dexterity modifier plus our monk level. So good. And if we reduce it to 0, we can spend a focus point to redirect the damage, though I generally advise, at this level especially, that you conserve these focus points unless you're confident that the redirected damage is going to finish off an enemy. But then, yeah, we get our monk subclass here, and we are taking the one subclass that really just makes this whole concept work today, and that is, yes, the Warrior of the Elements. Boy, did this subclass get a fantastic glow up for 5.5. It is so good, and it is perfect for us today. As an Elements monk, we get 2 features. First up, Manipulate Elements teaches us the Elementalism cantrip, some fun flavor and utility there. But then we get Elemental Attunement, which is the main reason we're here, right? This says that at the start of our turn, we can just spend a focus point, no other action or resource required, thank you so much, to imbue ourselves with elemental energy for 10 minutes, or until we are incapacitated. While thus imbued, our unarmed strikes have a reach bonus of 10 feet, meaning that we could hit from 15 feet away now. Awesome. Though remember, if we're attacking a prone enemy, if we went Hill Giant Goliath, right, we'd still want to be right next to them to get advantage, or we'd actually have disadvantage on the attack if they were prone. So consider that if you're thinking about going Hill Giant Goliath ancestry. Do you want to get up in their business or stay a little safer by attacking consistently from kind of mid-range? But then, best of all, for us, when we hit with an unarmed strike, we can make the damage be acid, fire, lightning, thunder, or, you guessed it, cold damage. Oh, and we can force a strength save or move the enemy 10 feet towards or away from us if we want, but be careful with that. We might not want to force a saving throw from them just yet. More on that in a second. So yeah, at this point, the divine magic or energy from our deity is starting to manifest itself in strange and powerful ways as we continue, I think, to prove our devotion. Or sure, maybe we're just tapping into it with greater self-discipline or increased connection to the divinity of the natural world. Either way, it's awesome. It's super cinematic. At level 5, we would be a monk 4, and that means we get slow fall, which lets you use your reaction when you fall to reduce falling damage that you take by 5 times your monk level. So jump off those rooftops just to show off to your friends. But then we finally get our first general feat, and yes, of course, we are taking the thing that we're building around here, Coldcaster. This would bump our wisdom to 18, which will help our armor class, our heals, and both our cleric and monk DC. So as much as I'd like to get dexterity up 2 to improve our hit chance above all, but also sure our damage and other things, I think with as many attacks as we're going to be able to make every turn, especially with Flurry of Blows and soon extra attack, the likelihood of us landing at least one attack every round is really, really high. So on this build, yeah, we care more about wisdom than we do dexterity, I think. As a reminder then, or in case you skipped the preamble, you naughty person, you. Yes, this feat teaches us the Ray of Frost cantrip and says that when we hit with an attack that does cold damage, the enemy's next save they make before the end of our next turn is reduced by a d4, so it only counts for one save. Thus, like I said, I wouldn't try to push them with our elemental unarmed strike just yet, unless you really want to move them, or have nothing else better to do. But it's really the next level, level 6, where the core of the build kind of all really comes together, because we would be a monk 5, and that means we get, first of all, a little bump to our martial arts die, right? It jumps up to a 1d8, that's nice. And then we get extra attack so that we can make 2 attacks with our action if we want. But then, most importantly for us, yes, that infamous stunning strike, which says that once per turn, but again, not just on our turn, so we could do this if we had a reaction attack too, right? When we hit with a monk weapon or unarmed strike, we can spend a focus point to force a constitution saving throw or stun our target until the start of our next turn. If they succeed, their speed is halved, and the next attack against them has advantage. Right, so stunned. You are totally incapacitated, you automatically fail strength and dexterity saving throws, and all attacks against you have advantage. It's weird that in 5.5 you can still move while stunned, but regardless, this is such an amazing debuff that shuts down enemies cold. Get it? When it works. Oh, and you better believe that on this build, when I do this, I am totally flavoring it as me like shooting out blasts of ice from my fists and my feet that just freeze an enemy solid, right? But of course, the thing about stunning strike is that famously it so often doesn't work, right? Thanks to that pesky constitution saving throw, which is so often one that enemies succeed at in 5e, and yeah, 5.52, though it is slightly better now than it used to be. I mean, and we used to be able to spam Stunning Strike, right? If we really wanted to just burn through all of our focus points so that we could almost guarantee that it would work at least once when we really needed it to. But alas, that is no longer the case, once per turn. So yeah, Stunning Strike doesn't work as often as we would like unless you're playing this build, of course. So let's discuss in our first, not damage report, we're not building for damage, but support report. So, right, here's what I think combat would ideally look like for us at this level. On round 1, I think I start out with the Bane spell with my action, right? It's a charisma save, we can target multiple enemies with it, there's a very high likelihood that at least one enemy would be affected by this, yeah? We would then pick the deadliest looking baddie who failed that save, get at least within 15 feet of them, spend a focus point to activate our elemental attunement, and then I would probably either spend a second focus point to use Flurry of Blows or use a luck point to get advantage on a bonus action unarmed strike. We're probably going to want to conserve resources because assuming we hit, we will activate that Coldcaster feature to reduce their next save by a d4. So now that's a -2 d4 if they're baned, right? And we would need to spend a focus point right there to try and stun them. So yeah, luck would be great to have here to help us stretch our focus points so we're not spending 3 focus points of our 5 right on round 1, just 2. Assuming they fail that save. It's not a guarantee, but we've got a respectable 15 DC right now, and I mean, the average Constitution save for a CR6 enemy in the 2024 Monster Manual is only a +3. At CR9, it's like 5.5 on average. And if they're reducing it by 2d4, even a +5 to con save is basically negated, right? If they do, we could topple them if we wanted. We could grapple them, potentially, later, especially if we had one more attack, right? Or if we used Flurry of Blows, or if we took the grappler feat. And if they were stunned, they would automatically fail that save. They auto-fail strength and dex saves, right? We could push or pull them with our elemental attunement, and they'd automatically fail that too if they were stunned. And yeah, remember, all of these things happen simultaneously when we make an attack. We've got a bunch of stuff that says when you make an attack, you can do X, right? And when things happen simultaneously, the rules state that we get to determine in what order they occur. So hit them, reduce their next save from Coldcaster, then apply Stunning Strike, then do anything else we might want to do. It is, frankly, a thing of beauty and hilarious, and might make your DM really mad, so be prepared with snacks and your winningest smile. On subsequent turns, though, you basically rinse and repeat, but the good news is that we have our action, right? We already cast Bane to attack with now, so even without Flurry of Blows, that's 3 chances to land a hit, so we can try to keep reducing the save and then stunning as long as we've got focus points to spend. With 5 focus points, that should just get us through most combat encounters, assuming a 4-round combat encounter, right? If we're not using Flurry of Blows. And the good news is that we probably have other enemies baned, which really helps out our allies, and we probably have a heal or 2 we can throw out in a pinch if need be. This is a fantastic controller, at least for one target at a time, who's throwing out a solid multiple enemy debuff, adding on a little damage while they control, and bringing some nice backup healing support as well. I love it, and I want to see where we can take it from here. So let's do that, shall we? At level 7, there's a lot of reasons to stay in Monk. More focus points maybe above all, though recovering them on a short rest and with uncanny metabolism I think will be pretty okay most of the time at most tables. But yeah, evasion is nice, more unarmed strikes later, some fun and useful utility and survivability, but I kind of feel like for this character, who's a support controller debuffer first, right? We get a lot more for that role by going back to Cleric. If you'd rather lean into being more of a controller damage dealer hybrid, sure, stay Monk. But yeah, I think I want to go Cleric 2 here. That means that we would get Channel Divinity. We get 2 uses of Channel Divinity per day, we recover 1 use on a short rest, and right now we can use it to either turn undead to force undead within 30 feet to make a wisdom save or be frightened of us and run away, or for Divine Spark to let us do a little damage or a little healing, but it's not much, so I'd say use Divine Spark in case of emergency only. But then at level 8, we would be a Cleric 3, and that means we get our Cleric subclass. And this choice was a bit tough for me to make, honestly, mostly because there are several that would work fine, and that I think would be fun and fitting for this character. I think Tempest Cleric would make a great choice, conceptually, above all, worshipping a deity of the storm, as you might be. And there's some fun potential here to throw your enemies even further if you want to do lightning damage instead of cold, right? I think I might try to build around this combo one day for some far-flinging shenanigans. I think Life Cleric makes a nice alternative if you just kind of want to lean into your healing power, since they get some solid healing buffs for their allies and eventually for themselves as well. But I think my favorite subclass for this build might actually be the Peace Domain. I know, I can hear some of you groaning across time and space. Don't use it if you don't want to, or if you think it's too powerful, or if it's banned at your table. It's honestly not a huge deal. I personally happen to think that the subclass is really good, among the strongest cleric subclasses, but I don't find it overpowered or broken, like the Twilight Cleric. Sorry, yeah, that thing's just busted. Peace Cleric works great thematically too, as there is sort of a calming beauty about the cold and the winter, right? And I mean, sure, it could be flavored as like the frozen numbness that brings a semblance of peace as the frostbite takes over and you fade into oblivion if you want to go the more sinister route. But you could also flavor this as like hygge, you know? The comfy, cozy peace of being by a warm fire with a cup of something hot cuddled in a blanket while snow is coming down outside. Maybe all along, this character just worships the god of coziness, who loves the cold and the winter just because it forces loved ones to gather together inside and do a puzzle. The god of cottagecore. I love it. Anyways, pick your favorite subclass here, honestly. I'm going to assume that we've gone Peace Cleric. As such, we get 3 features here now that we've finally gotten our subclass. Implement of Peace gives us another skill proficiency. We've built up some decent skill monkiness now, actually, for the social and exploration modes. And then there's Emboldening Bond, which is probably the most controversial feature. It's kind of like a poor man's bless spell, and is the main reason I thought it worked well for this character, as we are throwing out Bane on our enemies, and now like a pseudo bless on our allies, subtracting d4s and adding d4s. Man, this is like the ultimate d4 character. Maybe this should be my new mascot. With Emboldening Bond, you take an action, you create a bond among you and your allies within 30 feet, up to your proficiency bonus in creatures, so it might not be your whole party just yet. But then, as long as any one of them is within 30 feet of at least one other who was thus blessed, they can add a d4 to any attack, ability check, or saving throw they make, but just once per turn. Again, importantly, not once per round, meaning you could, say, use it on your turn for an attack, and then on an enemy's turn, if they were forcing you to make a saving throw, you could use it again, right? So yeah, just once per turn. So not quite as good as Bless in that way, and you have to stay sort of close to others, but it doesn't require concentration, doesn't require a spell slot. You can do it times, and it lasts for 10 minutes. It's very, very good, no question. But, you know, an action to use it, and limited the number of times you can use it, I don't think it's crazy overpowered. It just makes everyone like you a little bit more than they already did. I also love the idea of hopefully being able to use this on yourself just to help you land that one hit that you really need to land per turn. And sure, help you make your saves, holding on to concentration especially, etc. We would also get Balm of Peace at this level. Remember, clerics used to get their subclass right at level 1, right? Since we have to wait until level 3 now, we kind of get a bunch of features all at once. This is another way to use our Channel Divinity, saying that as an action, we can move up to our speed. It's a good thing we have 45 feet of it, without provoking opportunity attacks. That's nice. And then when we move within 5 feet of any other creature, we can, not have to, heal them for 2d6 plus our Wisdom modifier. Just once, no like ping-ponging between two injured allies and just like heal, 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 right? And yeah, of course, I totally want to build now a character who has the Ashardalon's Stride spell and this, so they can just run around everyone on their turn and just either heal them or burn them, depending. That's just fun and weird, and I love it. Anyways, this ability it's nice. Like, if we really don't need our action to attack, and or we've got multiple allies who could use some healing, sure, it's cool. And pretty unique and cinematic too. Good times. Finally, here we get second level cleric spells. What a level. Peace clerics get Heroism, Sanctuary, Aid, and Warding Bond for free. What a spell list. Some really solid support options there. But beyond that, I would grab Lesser Restoration for some nice curing, Prayer of Healing for an almost instant short rest, which we especially love as a monk, right? But above all, yes, Hold Person. The only thing better than stunning your enemy? Paralyzing them. Well, I mean killing them, of course. The dead condition is a nasty one, but you know what I mean. Hold Person forces a Wisdom save, or the humanoid, has to be a humanoid unfortunately, but remember that's a lot of potential bad guys. More than just humans, right? But anyways, they make their save or they are paralyzed, which means all of the things from being stunned, plus you can't move, and attacks within 5 feet of you are automatic critical hits. So now, if you're fighting humanoids, consider concentrating on this instead of Bane for sure. That would let you freeze 2 enemies solid potentially, one with this, one with Stunning Strike, right? And that would be a lot of fun and powerful. Oh, and if you upcast Hold Person, which we could do later with more spell slots, right, you can affect more targets. Sweet. At level 9, we would be a Cleric 4, and that means we get another general feat, and as much as I would love to cap my Wisdom and Dexterity eventually, right, or sure, take Warcaster now, and then like another half Wisdom feat later to improve my concentration checks, among other things, I mean, yeah, Fairy Trickster. It's right there. And despite what I said in the preamble, it is so good, and it's perfect for this build. So let's grab it. Here's exactly what the feat does. It will increase our dexterity or charisma, but dexterity by 1 to 17. Man, I wish that we could still be a mountain dwarf and start with 2 plus 2s to ability scores, right? So we'd have an 18 dex now. Anyways, it also says that when we disengage on our turn, difficult terrain doesn't slow us. That's cool if we need it. And we can disengage as a bonus action, so that's nice. But then, best of all, we are told that when we hit with an attack, we can force the enemy to make a wisdom saving throw, the DC of which is, unfortunately, actually, though I'd usually love this, is based on our dexterity, right? Which, yeah, is one lower than our wisdom right now, but oh well. But if the enemy fails, they have disadvantage on all of their saving throws until the end of our next turn. Dang, that's good. But they do get to save. And worse yet, I think we can only use it proficiency bonus times per day. Still, now that we're level 9, that means we could potentially use it every round in a 4-round combat encounter. So, okay, let's break it down in our next support report. Since last check, we have added some nice additional debuff, buff, heal, and control options. Here's what I'd at least consider doing in combat now. Round 1, I think I probably start out with Bane again. Hold person is awesome against humanoids, but at this level, it seems maybe like it'll less often be the case that we're fighting humanoids than that we are, right? And Bane is still really great. It affects multiple enemies. It's so good. We could upcast it at the 2nd level and hit 4 baddies with it. Anyways, at that point, we run up to one that failed it, use a luck point or flurry of blows, maybe both, activate elemental attunement, and smack them with an unarmed frosty blast. If it hits, reduce their next save by another d4, thanks to Coldcaster for 2d4 still, right? Everything so far is kind of the same. But then, thanks to Fairy Trickster, force a wisdom save, since we hit them with an attack. They have a minus 2d4 to that wisdom save, if they're baned. They will almost assuredly fail that, and then we hit them with Stunning Strike. They'll only have a minus 1d4 on it now, but with disadvantage, which is, again, usually worse for them than just another minus 1d4 would be, right? Mathematically. So now they're even more likely to fail. On round 2, I'd consider using Emboldening Bond if you went Peace Cleric. You might have even wanted to start with this if you could, especially since it lasts 10 minutes. There's a decent chance you could get this going before combat started, and if so, all the better. But yeah, giving your entire party, if there's 4 of you, an extra d4 on one attack and on their saves will be pretty sweet, and will help you continue landing that bonus action unarmed strike you would make on that round, right? Because if we're using our action to do this, we're still only getting 1 attack to try and keep stunning enemies. And then, yeah, knocking them prone, pushing them around, maybe even grappling them, etc., etc. If you were fighting a bunch of humanoids, or maybe a group where there was at least one humanoid, sure, try to punch them first with a bonus action, with Coldcaster, lower their save by a d4, then hit them with Fairy Trickster to give them disadvantage, then, with your action, hit them with Hold Person. That's a lot of saves in one single action, right? I know, but once they're paralyzed, you could probably just ignore that creature and just go start stunning other enemies, right? They get to make a save at the end of their turn against that hold person, but they'll have disadvantage on them now, all of their saves. On top of all of that, yeah, we can be bumping our party's maximum hit points with aid, healing them when they're down, buffing them, curing them, putting Warding Bond on our most vulnerable ally. It's just a ton of control and debuffing that we are bringing to the table, and it's freaking awesome. Let's keep going. At level 10, we would be a Cleric 5, and that means we get Seer Undead, which just does some extra damage to Undead when we use our Channel Divinity to try and turn them, right? Wisdom modifier number of d8s in damage, but no half damage on a save, alas. But then we get 3rd level spells. Peace Clerics get Beacon of Hope and Sending for free, both pretty nice, but beyond that, yeah, Aura of Vitality is great for healing every round and not even costing our bonus action for the heal anymore. I think I forgot that the last time I talked about this spell. It requires concentration though, which is usually why I prefer to just use it between combat encounters for tons of healing, right? But Dispel Magic is always great. Mass Healing Word is okay. Maybe less so if we're a Peace Cleric, since we've already got a multi-target heal, potentially. But it only takes a bonus action. Anyways, Revivify, of course, in case of emergency. But, alright, what about the 2 spirit spells? Spirit Guardians and Spirit Shroud. 2 of my most oft-used spells. I'd at least consider them. Maybe there's a fight where you just need to do damage to lots of enemies. Spirit Guardians is great for that. Throw it on yourself and then run around the battlefield with your 45 feet of speed and potential to dash as a bonus action, right? You could lay waste to hordes of minions, even if they were spread out. Or, sure, Spirit Shroud adds a d8 of damage to every attack, and I mean, With Flurry of Blows, we could be attacking 4 times a round. This wouldn't have us topping the damage charts or anything, but I mean, maybe you're in a fight against a big boss with a super high constitution or legendary saves, and you don't want to just be the like burn their legendary saves bot, which isn't a bad bot to have, but it's also not as effective now as it used to be, since you can't just spam Stunning Strike, right? It's just once per turn. I mean, you could just concentrate on Bless, or, I mean, combined with Emboldening Bond plus 2d4, it's really good. Or, sure, use Spirit Shroud and just start flurrying. With our mediocre dexterity, though, I'd honestly probably just concentrate on Spirit Guardians if we were going for damage. It does half damage on a save, so we'd probably get more mileage out of it on average, right, depending on the enemy's AC. And it wouldn't require us to Flurry of Blows to maximize the damage either, which is nice, helping us save our focus points, right? Okay, at level 11, we would be a Cleric 6, and that means as a Peace Cleric, we get Protective Bond, and this is a really potent one that Peace Clerics get that some people might complain about. It says that when someone affected by your Emboldening Bond is about to take damage, a second bonded creature within 30 feet of them can use their reaction to teleport to within 5 feet of the one getting hit, right, and take all of the damage in their place. I love this so much, and yeah, it's a great tank move, right? But I mean, it requires the one who's sacrificing themselves to use their reaction, so it's only once per turn, and it's not like the target makes the attack against you and then maybe might miss, right, if you've got a really high AC, because you're a Guardian Artificer with like a 31 armor class like that. That might be overpowered, but this, no, you teleport and you just take the damage. Cool, fun, useful, unique, cinematic, not overpowered, I don't think, just really, really good, my opinion. All right, at level 12, we would be a Cleric 7, and that means we get Blessed Strikes, which makes me mad. This says we can choose between one of 2 buffs. A Divine Strike lets us deal an extra d8 of necrotic or radiant damage once on each of our turns when we hit with a weapon, specifically. What the heck? Come on, Wizards of the Coast. You've been doing so good at including or an unarmed strike in 5.5, right? Why not here? Hopefully your DM will let it work for you regardless, otherwise you gotta find yourself a weapon to benefit from this. Or you could take Potent Spellcasting, the other option, right, which adds your Wisdom modifier to damage from a Cleric cantrip, but probably won't be doing that much either. But hey, at least we get 4th level spells here. Peace Clerics get Aura of Purity and Outtakes Resilient Sphere for free, both of which are situationally useful. But beyond that, consider Aura of Life to keep just about anyone from staying unconscious on their turn. Death Ward to keep them from going down in the first place, right? Divination for some nice, like, which path do we take utility. And Freedom of Movement to keep you from being slowed or snared. At level 13, we would be a Cleric 8, and we get another feat. And yeah, this is kind of a tough choice now. We have a 17 dexterity. That's super annoying. But our wisdom isn't capped yet. Also annoying. And I want Warcaster, well, at this point, Resilient Constitution would probably be even better. I think I'd probably go with either the Grappler feat or Mage Slayer here. Both bump our dexterity to 18 for better AC, better attacks, better initiative, right? Better stealth checks if you're filling that role in your party. Plus a better DC on our Fairy Trickster, right? On the other hand, Grappler is great to improve your control. It lets you punch and grapple once per turn. So on those rounds where you're just getting like a single bonus action unarmed strike, it's especially nice. And it lets you drag enemies that you've got grappled around without getting slowed down. Gives you advantage on attacks against grappled enemies. If you want to control 1 or 2 more enemies on your turn, I would do this. I kind of wanted to commit to a control character who didn't depend on grappling today, like I said, right? So if you don't want to, that's fine. Mage Slayer is amazing. It lets you more likely disrupt concentration on casters. Of course, if you're going to be incapacitating them via Stunning Strike, that won't matter so much, but hey, maybe they're getting really lucky rolls. And also, it just lets you automatically succeed on a Wisdom, Intelligence, or Charisma saving throw once per short or long rest. Again, we're kind of the master of like succeeding on our saving throws and causing enemies to fail theirs, which is really nice. If you'd rather max your Wisdom here instead or buff your concentration though, I don't think it'd be a bad idea. But this brings us to our next support report. Since last check, our tactics have largely remained the same, I think. We've just improved our ability to do more than debuff and control, especially when it comes to protecting allies, healing, defending ourselves, and maybe even doing a little bit more damage. It's feeling like a super well-rounded support character at this point, but not a ton to report on otherwise, so let's just finish this baby off. At level 14, we would be a Cleric 9, and that means we get 5th level Cleric spells, and there are some doozies. Peace Clerics get Greater Restoration and Rary's Telepathic Bond for free. Greater Restoration is especially nice for some really wonderful cure-all power, but Raised Dead is a nice backup in case you couldn't quite revivify before the 1-minute timer on Revivify, right? There's Hallow, of course. Let's talk about that in a minute. But best of all, for this build, Hold Monster. Wait a sec. Clerics don't get Hold Monster? We get Hold Person, but not Hold Monster. The hell? How does that make sense? So dumb. Really wanted that for this build. Okay, you know what? Forget this peace crap. Embrace War instead, because War Clerics do get Hold Monster. You honestly might not care that much. You might not even be playing this character at this high of a level. But yeah, being able to paralyze any creature with Hold Monster instead of just humanoids, right, is some powerful shutdown potential, for sure. But there are plenty of other great options. Maybe grab Flame Strike in case you need big bursty AoE damage, I suppose. And you want to warm the bones that you've chilled. And by warm, I mean turn to ash. But okay, at level 15, we would be a Cleric 10, and that means we get to talk about Divine Intervention again. Am I gonna have to get into an argument every time I take 10 levels in Cleric now? Probably not. This feature is amazing. It now just straight up lets us use a magic action to cast any Cleric spell of 5th level or lower that doesn't require a reaction to cast without spending a spell slot or material components once per day. Our god is powerful. And so, yeah, casting Raised Dead here is probably what the developers were thinking we'd maybe want to use this for, right? Save money on all of those expensive diamonds, or maybe just like Flame Strike or something. But no, we losers immediately went, instant cast Hallow, break game! And yeah, we got into this in the Hammer of the Divine build from a couple of months ago. Do I have any cards left? Check it out here. It was a pretty great single class Cleric build for AoE damage mostly, but Hallow usually takes 24 hours to cast for good reason. It's really powerful. It fills a 60-foot radius area, big area, with a very powerful effect. Perhaps the most powerful of which being Vulnerability, which lets you give vulnerability to one damage type of your choice, to any type of creatures that you choose, and if you build around this, you could really do some crazy increased damage for your whole party as a result, right? And so, yeah, a lot of people say this doesn't work, they've got their arguments, or they just ban it at their table because they think it's too powerful, but I don't know. Once a day, calling on our deity, right? At level 10, or I mean in our case level 15, I think it's mostly fine, just don't abuse it. But if you can't or don't want to use this for like instant vulnerability, that's okay. I think there are some other really cool, powerful things that you could get from an instant cast Hallow that might feel a little more balanced, a little less broken. Immunity to Frightened, or causing everyone to be frightened, would suck for your allies, but maybe if you gave them Hero's Feast first, right? We can get that in a second. Resistance to a certain damage type, silencing the area, which would prevent spells from being cast there generally, or communication of the verbal variety at all, which could be kind of fun in a fight, right? Just this silent fight where nobody can say anything. Explosions are happening, but it's quiet. I don't know. Those are all potentially really good, but maybe slightly less broken, maybe. If vulnerability even is broken. Regardless, have fun with this, if you can get away with it especially, but just be sure to talk with your DM first. And if you can't do Hallow, there's plenty of other awesome, like once per day free 5th level spells or lower that you could be casting. It's amazing. At level 16, we would be a Cleric 11, And that means we get 6 level spells. And yeah, I think the 2 standout options here are heal, in case you need to just throw out 70 hit points of healing in one go, right? Or, like I said, Hero's Feast for a really solid buff. It gives our whole party poison resistance, immunity to the frightened and poisoned condition, 2d10 increase to max hit points. And yeah, the buff route feels maybe a little more on point for this character, especially if you went Peace Cleric and flavored it with loads of hygge. Now you're just like the ghost of Christmas present or something. Kind of awesome. But then finally for us, at level 17, we would be a Cleric 12, and that means we get another feat. And yeah, like I've been saying for the past couple of feats, there are lots of options I'd like to take here. I think I probably just take my Wisdom to 20 or my Dexterity to 20. Both are good for our AC, but Wisdom improves our Stunning Strike DC and everything we want to be doing as a Cleric, honestly. While Dexterity improves our hit chance and our damage a bit, plus our Dex-based skills, our initiative, and yeah, that Fairy Trickster DC, right? Still, with the ability that we have to put the Coldcaster debuff on before forcing the Fairy Trickster save, and all other things considered, how many attacks we could potentially make, and we really only need to be landing 1, right? I think Wisdom still takes priority here, personally. So I think I cap that here first. Or sure, take Warcaster now, then switch back to Monk levels, take it to Monk 8, right? When you hit level 20, you get 1 more feat, grab the Epic Boon of Fate to bump your Wisdom to 20 and add or subtract 2d4 to anyone else's d20 test if you're going to level 20. Totally on point for the character thematically. But this brings us to our final support report. Again, I think our tactics are largely the same since last check. We're debuffing, smacking, debuffing some more, and freezing our enemies solid while we run around buffing and patching up our wounded allies. We just have more capacity to do all of those things now, especially the buffing and patching bits since last check than ever before. So let's get into some final thoughts, shall we? There's no tier score or anything for this build. I don't keep spreadsheets on my support characters generally. It's a lot tougher to calculate any kind of useful number effectively for support characters in a lab, right? So yeah. One thing some of you might be thinking here. What happens when we run into cold resistant enemies? That's going to throw this build off, right? Well, it is true that there are more enemies in the 5.5 Monster Manual resistant to cold damage than any other type of damage. 63 of them, to be precise. That's over 10%. And like the Elemental Adept feat wouldn't work for us because that only avoids resistance to spell damage specifically, and we're not doing cold damage from spells. Guess what? I don't really care, because as long as we deal some cold damage, the Coldcaster debuff works. And if enemies are resistant, sure, it'll cut the cold damage in half, but it's not going to negate it. And this build wasn't really made for damage anyways. So if they reduce my, 1d8 plus 4 eventually from 8.5 damage on average to 4.25 damage on average, I'm here to shut monsters down, not kill them. That's my friend's job. Now, cold immune enemies could be problematic. But thankfully, there aren't many cold immune enemies in the Monster Manual. Only 22 out of over 500. That's about as many as are immune to acid or lightning. It's way better than those that are immune to fire, only slightly worse than psychic. And hey, if we do run into cold immunity once in a while, that's fine. We've got other ways to debuff and buff. And so, having to mix it up now and then shouldn't make life too difficult. Maybe it'll keep it interesting. So yeah, man, I think this build would be a ton of fun to play. As many of you know by now, when I build and play support characters, I like to do more than just kind of stand in the back and heal, right? I want to have maybe some big burst or AoE potential to mix in with the healing, or be darting in and out of danger, debuffing, and then locking enemies down in addition to throwing out buffs and heals when they're needed. I just think it's so much more interesting and fun and engaging to play. And frankly, good for your team too. So yeah, this is my Jack Frost build to celebrate winter. I hope you loved it. Happy New Year. May all of your dreams come true for 2026. I am taking next week off, FYI, so that I can relax a little bit for the holidays. Though there will be my usual mean tweets, mean comments video that I do every year to help me purge the bad juju and just laugh about stuff. Very cathartic. So yeah, look for that next week. But otherwise, thanks for watching. I love you guys. Thank you so much for all that you do for me, for this channel. You helped make 2025 the best for me, and I'm grateful for that. I hope you have a really great day and a really great week and a really great year. But if you don't, hang in there. Please, please don't give up. You got this. I hope that you'll do good and that you'll be kind and that I see you again very soon. But until then, take care. So long. Oh, the weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so delightful. And since there's no place to go, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. It doesn't show signs of stopping, and I've brought some corn for popping. The lights are turned way down low. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. This is just wishful thinking on my part. It is December 18th as I record this. Northern Utah, and it is just like a balmy rain outside. It's not even a cold rain. It's like a mild, nice little spring rain we're having. And it's so weird, and it makes me sad because I want to go skiing. And the resorts are just like nothing but man-made snow, and that sucks. Labdamon. Sorry. Well, yeah. Shooting out blasts of ice from my fists and feet. Sorry, having visions of like cured salt pork. Not that kind of curing. Oof. I feel like I'm having a hard time today. Maybe glad. Yeah. The social and interaction. Sorry about that. For the social and it lets you just automatically succeed on a wisdom. Sorry, start that over. Ugh. Man, I'm struggling today. Per rest. Again, we are kind of the master of succeed. Sorry. We're peace clerics. Peace clerics get